There are two important facts about life you might not know. One, no mineral is more crucial to longevity than magnesium. Two, the most effective form of magnesium is stabilized magnesium ions. That's where REMAG comes in by Dr. Carolyn Dean. Experience the benefits of stabilized ionic magnesium and support your health today. Visit rnareset.com and use offer code MIRACLE10 for 10% off your first order. Visit rnareset.com and use offer code MIRACLE10 for 10% off your first order.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Let's go to Gordon Chang because we only have people with the last name C on today. Gordon, first of all, Merry Christmas to you and your wonderful wife.
Well, Merry Christmas to you guys, and thank you so much for having me on your air this year.
And you know, since we're talking C, China, what are your thoughts? First off, I want to ask you, we had on last night, we had Blaine Holt, Brigadier General Blaine Holt. I know you know it, you know, friend of ours, the great General Holt. And he was talking, Gordon, that he believes China may be somehow behind these very suspicious drones that have been flying over New Jersey and elsewhere. What are your thoughts about that? Because there's still so many questions today.
Well, clearly China has been behind the drones over some of our military bases. So, for instance, federal authorities charged a Chinese national with flying a drone over Vandenberg Space Force Base. And it's likely that China was behind the drones that are flying near Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. We also, when you start to look at some of this stuff, these drones coming over the Atlantic, unlikely to be domestic parties behind them. If they're not domestic, the question is, who do they belong to? Well, there's a number of people in New Jersey who believe that they're Iranian. But if they're Iranian, Iran can't do that without China's assistance. So probably they're behind those drones as well. And with regard to the drones that have been just over New Jersey, we really don't know. And so that's a big question mark. They could be domestic, they could be foreign. Unfortunately, we don't have the federal government really telling us very much that appears credible.
Well, China and Iran are working very closely together. When we had Victoria Coates on the other day, it seems like China working very closely with Panama, and they have the Panama Canal screwed up and charging the American people even more. And the Chinese and the Iranians working very closely together and on the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. And the Chinese ships can just go on, and nobody bothers them. But any other ships of the free world, guess what? They get shot at.
That sounds a little crazy, John. I mean, why do you think that is, John? Why do you think that the China seems to get free passage? What do you think, John?
Well, in China, I guess the bribes are not against the law.
I knew you'd have a good answer. Gordon, your answer.
Well, Iran can't operate without China's assistance. So, for instance, last year, China took more than 90% of Iran's exports of crude oil. And Beijing has been very much supporting Iranian diplomacy. And the October 7th attacks could not have occurred without Beijing's say-so. So, yes, we know that Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi militia, they all have large quantities of Chinese weapons. Beijing supports them from a diplomatic and propaganda points of view, and it's just across-the-board support. So, yes, that's right. And to go to John's point about the Panama Canal, we got to remember that China has port operations at both ends of the canal, and they can close the canal in a wartime situation. General Laura Richardson, when she was head of U.S. Southern Command, in the middle of 2022, took a helicopter flight over the canal zone, and she looked at those Chinese facilities and said, yeah, they can be dual use. She was being very polite, but we know that dual use means they can close off the canal, as a number of experts have said. So clearly, that's a choke point that China controls.
Well, my money is on Donald Trump. I think he's going to do something about it.
Yeah, thank goodness, right? Thank goodness. Ed Cox.
Now, you mentioned the export of Iranian oil to China. I thought we had sanctioned Iranian oil, so they can't ship it to China.
What's her name? Victoria Coates said it's 1.7 million barrels a day just to China.
So how does that happen if we sanctioned it, Gordon?
Yeah, we have sanctioned it. As a matter of fact, President Trump, in his first term, in 2018, reimposed American sanctions on the purchase of Iranian oil. But the Biden administration did not enforce those sanctions. And so last year, China's taking of Iranian oil was about 60% above that in 2017, which is the year before the reimposition of the sanctions. So it shows you that there has been wholesale violation of those sanctions and that the Biden administration couldn't have cared less. They just let it continue.
Why? Why did they do that? It makes no sense at all. The Iranians used
anything that Biden has done makes no sense. Okay? It seems like, I don't know who's pressing the treason button in Washington, but somebody is responsible. Somebody is committing treason.
John, it comes close to treason. You're absolutely right.
It is. It's so anti-American. I mean, it's baffling, Gordon. How would anybody, do these things? And you're the leader of America. It's like it's against our interests.
I have no answer to that except for John's. This is a clear American law, and it's a clear violation of it. And, we've seen the Biden administration be very pro-Iranian, and it's been consistently that way. If we go back to September 11th of last year, when that deal was announced on September 11th, by the way, this was just releasing of a large amounts of money back to Iran. But what was really stunning was that as a part of that, Biden granted clemency to 5 Iranian operatives in prison, in federal prison. He allowed, and this is the incredible part, he allowed 3 of them to actually remain in the United States at a time when other Iranian operatives were threatening the lives of former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and other senior Trump State Department officials. There was no reason for that. And, I can say treason, but, I just don't know. I mean, this is just inexplicable. It is just indefensible.
Gordon, I have a question to ask you. I saw this yesterday. I didn't know this, that 80% of the drones in the U.S. Are made by a company tied to China. And these are drones that are used by farms, by police stations, by and there's some big issue. The company called DJI, or it's DJI software, and it's controlled. There's allegations by China. How could that be? Because there's concern that obviously if they have control of the software, they could find out all this intel, especially if police stations are using it. Is that possible?
It's not only possible, it is also true. DJI makes about 70% of the world's drones, and I wouldn't be surprised if 80% of the drones in our country are DJI ones. It's nominally a private company, but we got to remember that Beijing runs a system where nobody can disobey a command of the Communist Party. And those drones can actually send information back to China unless the drone operator prevents. You have options when you buy the drone and you set it up. So you can prevent some of this information from going back to China. But I think that this is wrong. I mean, American law enforcement, including, by the way, the FBI and Secret Service buy DJI drones. And that, to me, is why. I mean, why do we want the Chinese to be able to survey the White House, for instance, on a continual basis? So
that's stunning.
This really is wrong.
That is really stunning. I mean, that the FBI and Secret Service are using software that's Chinese. I mean, it defies logic, Ed Cox.
Yeah, absolutely does.
Wow.
Now, Gordon, you asked the question, and I think you answered it. Can we do a grand bargain with China?
I don't think that we can. I mean, we've had presidents who have tried to do that, and especially since after the Cold War, the interests of the United States and China really are too divergent. Got to remember that the Communist Party views the United States as an existential threat. And it views us as an existential threat, not because of anything that we say or do, but because of who we are. An insecure regime in Beijing is worried about the inspirational impact of America's values and form of governance on the Chinese people. So the party believes it will never be safe as long as the United States exists. And the regime in May 2019 actually declared a people's war, quote unquote, on the United States, which in their lingo means total war. So you can't do a grand bargain or any bargain with the Chinese, unfortunately. Cold War was different, and your father-in-law was able to achieve a great victory, in a sense, of weaning and wooing the Chinese away from the Soviet Union. But times are very different now, and I don't think that that's possible anymore. It's not possible to do another Nixon deal.
Wow. Well said, Gordon Chang. We love having you here. And thank you for joining us on Christmas too, Gordon. And thanks for your wonderful friendship through the years. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Happy New Year and
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better. With services close to all New York and New Jersey cemeteries, Eden Memorial Chapels offer fair and balanced pricing and can provide easy transfer of you and your loved ones to Israel. While you're grieving, they're here to take care of all the details so that you deal with less bureaucracy and have more peace of mind. Go to EdenMemorial.com. That's EdenMemorial.com.
Larry Kudlow here with an urgent warning. While we celebrate Trump's historic win, inflation continues to drain your IRA and 401k, and China is now targeting your money with a kill shot on the dollar. That's why thousands of Americans are shielding their savings with gold and contacting the experts at Colonial Metals Group. Gold has protected American wealth through every financial war. For a free 2024 gold guide that explains everything, please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. The experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you bulletproof your wealth with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. That's 800-621-3908 for a free 2024 gold guide to learn how you can protect your life's work and if you qualify for a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver right now. Freegoldguide.com/Kudlow.